The Peninsula Hotel ballroom glittered like a jewelry box, crystal chandeliers throwing fractured light across marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Chicago skyline in all its nocturnal glory. November wind rattled the glass, but inside, the annual Harrison & Cole Financial Services Gala radiated warmth and wealth. Men in tuxedos that cost more than most people's monthly rent clustered around the bar. Women in designer gowns navigated the room with practiced grace, their laughter musical and strategic. Vanessa Cole stood near the entrance, champagne flute in hand, watching her husband work the room. At 38, Vanessa had perfected the art of observation. She'd built a career, and a fortune, on reading people, on seeing what others missed, on understanding the subtext beneath polite conversation. Tonight, wearing a custom midnight blue gown that hugged every curve she'd earned through twice-weekly sessions with her trainer, her natural hair styled in an intricate updo that had taken her stylist 3 hours to perfect, she looked every inch the successful executive's wife, which was exactly what she wanted people to see. The truth was infinitely more complicated. "Mrs. Cole, you look absolutely stunning tonight." Gerald Morrison, one of Harrison & Cole's senior partners, appeared at her elbow with the kind of smile that never quite reached his eyes. He was 63, pompous, and had been trying to push Vanessa out of every board meeting for the past 2 years. "Thank you, Gerald. You're looking well yourself." The lie came easily. Gerald looked exactly like what he was, an old white man clinging to relevance in an industry that was slowly, painfully evolving past him. "Your husband's done an excellent job planning this year's gala. The firm's had a remarkable year. Profits up 18%, new clients across 3 continents. Michael's really proven himself as a leader." Vanessa's smile didn't falter. "He certainly has." What Gerald didn't know, what almost no one in this room knew, was that those profits, those new clients, that remarkable year, had very little to do with Michael Cole's leadership and everything to do with the strategic decisions made by the firm's silent majority shareholder, her. Vanessa had learned early that being underestimated was a weapon. While everyone focused on Michael, charming, charismatic Michael with his Harvard MBA and his family connections, she'd quietly built an empire. Real estate investments, tech startups, a portfolio so diverse and carefully managed that her wealth had tripled in the past 5 years alone. And 3 years ago, when Harrison & Cole had faced a cash flow crisis that threatened to sink the entire firm, Vanessa had made her move. She'd purchased 51% of the company through a series of shell corporations and carefully structured deals that kept her ownership invisible to everyone except her lawyers and her accountant. Michael didn't know. The partners didn't know. The employees certainly didn't know. But Vanessa owned Harrison & Cole. Had owned it for 3 years. Had been content to let Michael play CEO while she pulled strings from the shadows, making the real decisions that kept the firm profitable. Until tonight. "Excuse me, Gerald. I need to find my husband." Vanessa moved through the crowd with purpose, her heels clicking against marble. She'd spotted Michael 15 minutes ago, near the south entrance, and something about his body language had triggered her instincts. The same instincts that had made her millions. She found him by the terrace doors, partially hidden by an enormous floral arrangement that probably cost more than most people's cars. He wasn't alone. Sienna Martinez stood close, too close, her hand resting on Michael's arm with a familiarity that made Vanessa's stomach tighten. Sienna was 26, beautiful in that effortless way young women often were, with honey-colored skin and dark hair that fell in perfect waves down her back. She'd been Michael's executive assistant for 8 months. 8 months. The timeline clicked into place with sickening clarity. Vanessa watched them, hidden by the crowd and the flowers. Watched the way Sienna laughed at something Michael said, the sound intimate and knowing. Watched the way Michael's hand found the small of Sienna's back, fingers spreading possessively. Watched them move closer together, and then, their fingers intertwined. Not a casual touch, not an accidental brush of hands. A deliberate, intimate gesture of people who knew each other's bodies, who'd touched in darkness and secrecy. The champagne in Vanessa's hand suddenly felt like poison. The room tilted slightly, and she forced herself to breathe, to maintain composure, to not give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her react. She'd suspected. God, she'd suspected for months. The late nights Michael claimed were work meetings. The new cologne. The way he'd become distant in bed, distracted, like his mind was somewhere else. The credit card charges from hotels in neighborhoods he had no business being in. But suspicion and confirmation were two different animals. Suspicion lived in shadows and could be rationalized away. Confirmation stood in crystal clarity, illuminated by chandelier light and impossible to deny. Vanessa turned away before they could see her. She moved through the crowd with mechanical precision, smiling at people whose names she couldn't remember, making small talk that required no conscious thought. Her mind was racing, calculating, planning. She'd built empires from nothing. She'd navigated boardrooms full of men who thought she was decorative. She'd turned investments into fortunes through careful strategy and ruthless execution. This would be no different. Vanessa, there you are. Her best friend since college, Monica Chen, appeared with 2 fresh champagne flutes and a knowing look. Monica was a corporate attorney, sharp as broken glass, with the kind of mind that could dismantle arguments before they fully formed. You look like you need this. That obvious? To me? Always? To everyone else? You're the picture of poise. Monica handed her the champagne. What happened? Michael, his assistant, holding hands by the terrace doors. Monica's expression hardened. That motherfucker. Eloquent as always. I'm serious, V. After everything you've done for him, for this firm, he's really going to... She stopped, lowered her voice. What are you going to do? Vanessa took a long sip of champagne, her mind already 10 steps ahead. I'm going to destroy him. Legally, I hope, because I can make that happen. Better than legally. I'm going to use the truth. Before Monica could ask what that meant, the lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the small stage at the far end of the ballroom. Michael stood there, microphone in hand, looking every inch the successful CEO in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo. Good evening, everyone. His voice carried across the room with practiced ease. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate another incredible year for Harrison and Cole. Applause rippled through the crowd. Vanessa clapped mechanically, her face a mask of supportive wife devotion. This year has been transformative for our firm, Michael continued. We've expanded into new markets, brought on exceptional talent. His eyes found Sienna in the crowd, lingered just a fraction too long, and positioned ourselves as leaders in financial services. More applause. Vanessa watched people who had no idea they were celebrating a lie, a performance, a carefully constructed fiction where Michael Cole was the brilliant leader steering the ship. I want to thank my incredible team, Michael said. The partners who've trusted my vision, the staff who've worked tirelessly, and of course, he turned toward Vanessa, extending his hand. My beautiful wife, Vanessa, whose support has meant everything. The spotlight swung to find her. Hundreds of eyes turned in her direction. This was the moment where she was supposed to smile graciously, maybe give a small wave, play her role as the supportive wife content to stand in her husband's shadow. Instead, Vanessa handed her champagne to Monica and walked toward the stage. She could feel the confusion rippling through the room. This wasn't part of the script. Wives didn't interrupt. They certainly didn't claim the microphone. But Vanessa had stopped playing by those rules the moment she'd seen her husband holding another woman's hand. Darling? Michael's confusion was evident as she climbed the steps to the stage. What are you... Vanessa took the microphone from his hand with a smile that could cut glass. I hope you don't mind, honey, but there's something I need to share with everyone. She turned to face the crowd. 300 people in formal wear, holding champagne, waiting to see what happened next. She found Gerald Morrison's face in the crowd. Found the other senior partners. Found Sienna, whose expression had shifted from confident to uncertain. Good evening, Vanessa said, her voice steady and clear. For those who don't know me, I'm Vanessa Cole, Michael's wife, and I have an announcement to make. Michael touched her elbow, his voice low and tight. V, what are you doing? She ignored him. My husband just thanked you all for making this year so successful. For trusting his vision and his leadership, and I think that's wonderful. But there's something you should know about Harrison & Cole Financial Services. The room had gone completely quiet. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving. 3 years ago, this firm faced a significant financial crisis. You were over-leveraged, hemorrhaging clients on the brink of collapse. Vanessa let that sink in. The senior partners were considering bankruptcy, liquidation, the end of a 70-year legacy. She could see people exchanging glances, confirming this history they thought was secret. But then something interesting happened. An anonymous investor swooped in with a cash infusion that saved the company. 51% ownership in exchange for the capital needed to survive and rebuild. Does anyone remember that? Gerald Morrison's face had gone pale. The other partners looked confused, trying to understand where this was going. The thing is, Vanessa continued, that anonymous investor wasn't so anonymous. Those shell corporations, that carefully structured deal, that was me. The silence deepened, became something physical and crushing. I own Harrison & Cole. I have for 3 years, 51% majority shareholder, which means... She turned to look at Michael, whose face had drained of all color. I own this firm. Not you, darling. Me. The room erupted. Voices overlapping, questions shouted, the carefully maintained decorum of the gala shattering like the champagne flutes several people dropped. That's impossible, Gerald sputtered. We would have known. The board would have been notified. Check with your lawyers, Vanessa said calmly. I'm sure they're already pulling the documentation. It's all legal, all properly filed, all completely legitimate. I'm the majority owner of Harrison & Cole Financial Services. I have been for 3 years. Michael grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to hurt. What the fuck are you doing? He hissed. Vanessa looked pointedly at his hand on her arm, then up at his face. Around them, phones were coming out, people were filming, and she knew this moment would be all over social media within minutes. I'm taking what's mine, she said quietly. Then louder, to the room. Effective immediately, I'm exercising my majority shareholder rights. There will be significant changes to Harrison & Cole's leadership structure. Details will be communicated Monday morning. She handed the microphone back to Michael, whose hand shook as he took it. His carefully constructed world was collapsing in real time, and everyone was watching. Vanessa descended from the stage and walked directly to where Sienna stood, frozen in shock. Miss Martinez, Vanessa said with poisonous politeness. I hope you enjoyed your time at Harrison & Cole. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You can't, Sienna started. I can. I own the company. Check your contract. There's a morality clause. Sleeping with your married boss violates it rather spectacularly. Vanessa's smile was ice. You'll receive 2 weeks severance. Consider yourself lucky. She turned to find Monica, who stood nearby with barely contained glee. Get me out of here, Vanessa said quietly. With pleasure. They walked toward the exit, leaving chaos in their wake. Behind them, Vanessa could hear Michael trying to address the crowd, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. But his voice was uncertain now, stripped of its earlier confidence. The November cold hit like a slap when they stepped outside. Vanessa's driver, Terrence, had the car waiting. Monica climbed in beside her, and they pulled away from the peninsula, away from the gala, away from the life Vanessa had just systematically demolished. Holy shit, Monica breathed. That was the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed. Vanessa stared out the window at Chicago rushing past. The city where she'd built her fortune, where she'd played the role of supportive wife while accumulating power behind the scenes. I should have done it years ago. Why didn't you? Because I thought, Vanessa's voice caught. I thought if I was patient, if I was strategic, if I built enough success on my own terms, it would be enough. I could let Michael have his moment in the sun because I knew the truth. I knew who really ran things. And now? Now I'm done hiding, done playing small, done letting people underestimate me because it's convenient or strategic. Vanessa turned to Monica. I want a divorce attorney, the best in Chicago. Someone who will eviscerate him. I know just the person. Diane Chen, no relation. She's a barracuda. She'll get you everything. I don't want everything. I already have everything. Vanessa pulled out her phone, which was exploding with notifications, text messages, emails, missed calls. I just want him to know what it feels like to lose. They drove through the city in silence for a while. Vanessa's mind was racing, cataloging everything that would need to happen in the coming days and weeks. The board meetings, the restructuring, the public relations nightmare, the divorce proceedings. But underneath the calculating, strategic part of her brain, there was something else. Grief. Not for Michael. That relationship had been dying long before tonight. But for the version of herself who'd believed that love and success could coexist, that she could have both the empire and the partnership. She'd been wrong. And tonight, in front of 300 witnesses and countless more who'd see the videos already circulating online, she'd chosen which one mattered more. Her phone rang. Michael. She sent it to voicemail. It rang again. She turned it off entirely. Where do you want to go? Monica asked. Your place? Mine? We can get you a hotel if you don't want to deal with the office, Vanessa said. Take me to Harrison and Cole. I have work to do. Because that's who Vanessa Cole was. She didn't run from battles. She didn't hide from consequences. She walked directly into the fire and came out holding all the cards. The car turned toward the loop, toward the 40-story building that housed Harrison and Cole Financial Services, toward the empire she'd built in secret and claimed publicly. Toward the future she was about to forge on her own terms, without apology, without compromise. Michael had made his choice when he'd intertwined his fingers with Sienna Martinez's. Now Vanessa was making hers, and she was choosing herself. The Harrison and Cole offices at midnight had an eerie quality. Fluorescent lights humming in empty corridors. The cleaning crew moving ghost-like between cubicles. The floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting Vanessa's image back at her like a stranger. She stood in what had been Michael's corner office, technically still was for the next few hours, staring out at Chicago's skyline. The city looked clean from 40 stories up, the streets reduced to ribbons of light, the harsh realities of life sanitized by distance. Her phone, which she'd turned back on upon arriving, hadn't stopped buzzing. The videos from the Gala had gone viral. Twitter was exploding. LinkedIn was chaos. The business press was scrambling to confirm the story, to dig into the shell corporations, to understand how Vanessa Cole had hidden majority ownership of a major financial firm for 3 years. She scrolled through messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years, all suddenly wanting to reconnect, to congratulate her, to get a piece of whatever power she now openly wielded. One message stood out. Unknown number, you absolute fucking legend. Jay. Vanessa smiled despite everything. She knew exactly who Jay was. Jordan Blake had been her mentor 15 years ago, when Vanessa was a 23-year-old junior analyst trying to break into a world that didn't want her. Jordan was a black woman who'd made her fortune in private equity, who'd faced every barrier Vanessa would later encounter, and had demolished them all with strategic brilliance and zero apologies. She'd taught Vanessa everything: how to negotiate, how to invest, how to build wealth invisibly while men congratulated themselves on their own success. Jordan had retired to the Bahamas 5 years ago, but they still kept in touch sporadically. Vanessa texted back, "Learned from the best." The response came immediately. "Call me. Now. I want details." Vanessa dialed. Jordan answered on the first ring. "Vanessa Cole, You beautiful, brilliant, savage woman. Tell me everything." Despite the chaos of the past few hours, Vanessa laughed. "You saw the videos?" "Honey, the whole world saw the videos. You're trending #2 on Twitter, right below some celebrity nonsense. Every business publication is scrambling to write profiles. You just became the most talked about woman in finance." "That wasn't exactly the plan. The best moves never are." "Calculated chaos. That's what I taught you, right?" Jordan's voice carried the particular satisfaction of a teacher watching their student succeed spectacularly. "So, talk to me. How long have you known about Michael and the assistant?" "Suspected for months. Confirmed tonight when I saw them holding hands at the gala like they were the couple and I was just set dressing." "And the ownership reveal?" "Pure rage-fueled impulse." Vanessa sat in Michael's desk chair, her desk chair now. "I've been planning to go public eventually, restructure the firm under my vision. But I was going to be strategic about it, controlled. Tonight I just snapped." "Good. You've been playing chess while everyone else played checkers for too long. Time to flip the board." Jordan paused. "What's your next move?" "Divorce. Complete restructuring of Harrison and Cole. Probably firing at least half the senior partners who've been dead weight for years. Building something better. I'm proud of you. Legitimately proud. You took everything I taught you and went further than I ever did. You made millions and retired at 50. I'd say you did pretty well. I made money, but I never had the guts to take over a company publicly and tell my cheating husband to fuck off in front of 300 people. That's a different level of power play." Jordan's voice softened slightly. "How are you really doing? Strip away the strategy and the anger. How are you?" Vanessa looked at her reflection in the dark window. How was she? Furious, heartbroken, liberated, terrified, exhilarated. All of it at once, a storm of emotions she didn't have time to process. "I'm surviving," she said finally. "I'll fall apart later. Right now, I need to execute. That's my girl. Listen, when the dust settles, come visit me in Nassau. We'll drink expensive rum and plot your next empire." "Deal." They hung up, and Vanessa was alone again with the humming lights and her fractured reflection. She opened her laptop and began drafting an email to the board of directors, officially notifying them of her majority ownership and calling an emergency meeting for Monday morning. She was 3 paragraphs in when she heard the elevator ding. Footsteps in the corridor. Heavy, male, moving fast. Michael burst into the office, still in his tuxedo but disheveled now, his bow tie undone, his expression a mix of rage and panic. What the fuck was that? He slammed the door behind him hard enough to rattle the framed credentials on the wall. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. You destroyed my reputation." Vanessa didn't look up from her laptop. "Your reputation destroyed itself when you started fucking your assistant." "Don't..." He crossed the room in 3 strides, looming over the desk. "You don't get to throw stones. You've been lying to me for 3 years. You own this company and you never told me?" "Why would I tell you?" Vanessa finally looked up, her voice ice calm. "So you could take credit for my success? So you could parade around playing CEO while I did the actual work? No thanks. I preferred you ignorant. I'm your husband. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're the man who vowed to love and honor me while planning to fuck his 26-year-old assistant in hotels across Chicago." Michael's face flushed. "It's not, Sienna and I. That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about, Michael? Explain it to me. Make it make sense." "You!" The word exploded out of him. "It's about you. You're cold. You're calculating. You're always 3 steps ahead. You make me feel like I'm an accessory to your life instead of a partner. And whose fault is that? I built my career. I made smart investments. I created wealth and opportunity. Was I supposed to stay small so you could feel big? You lied to me. About business decisions that were mine to make. You betrayed me. With a woman young enough to be our daughter if we'd had kids. Those aren't equivalent, Michael. He sank into the chair across from the desk, his anger deflating into something that looked like despair. How long have you been planning this? Planning what? The divorce? I wasn't. Not until I saw you with her. Vanessa closed her laptop. The ownership reveal? I've been planning to go public for about 6 months. You just accelerated my timeline by being an idiot. We've been married 12 years. I know. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Vanessa considered the question. 12 years. They'd met when she was 26 and he was 28, both young professionals trying to make it in Chicago's brutal financial sector. He'd been charming, ambitious, well-connected. She'd been brilliant but raw, hungry but uncertain how to channel it. In the early years it had worked. They'd pushed each other, celebrated each other's successes, built a life that looked perfect from the outside. But somewhere along the way, probably around the time Vanessa's wealth started outpacing his, her strategic mind proving sharper than his, her investments multiplying while his career plateaued, something had shifted. He'd grown resentful. She'd grown distant. They'd become roommates who occasionally had sex and attended events together, but had stopped actually seeing each other. It meant something, Vanessa said quietly. Once. But you know what kills a marriage faster than infidelity? Contempt. And Michael, you've been looking at me with contempt for at least 3 years. Every time I succeeded. Every time I made a smart call. Every time I was right and you were wrong. You resented me for being good at what I do. That's not true. Isn't it? Be honest. When did you start sleeping with Sienna? 8 months ago? That's right when I closed the Mercado deal, isn't it? The one you said would never work. The one that made me $40 million. Michael's silence was confirmation enough. You couldn't handle that your wife was more successful than you, Vanessa continued. So you found someone younger, someone impressed by your title and your paycheck, someone who made you feel important again. I get it. It's pathetic and cliché, but I get it. Don't psychoanalyze me. Then don't make me. Just sign the divorce papers when they arrive, and let's end this with whatever dignity we have left. What if I don't want a divorce? Vanessa laughed, sharp and bitter. You're sleeping with another woman. You don't get a vote. I'll fight you. On everything. The house, the assets, the firm. You'll lose. Her voice cut like surgical steel. I have the best attorney in Chicago. I have documentation of your affair. I have a prenup that you signed 12 years ago that heavily favors me in case of infidelity. And, she leaned forward, I own the company you work for. So unless you want to be unemployed, broke, and publicly humiliated worse than you already are, I suggest you cooperate. Michael stared at her like he'd never seen her before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe she'd been performing for so long that even she'd forgotten who she really was underneath the role of supportive wife. When did you become so cold? He asked. I'm not cold. I'm clear. There's a difference. He stood, straightening his tuxedo jacket in a gesture that was pure habit, pure performance. You're going to regret this. When you're alone in that big house with nothing but your money and your success, you're going to wish you'd been willing to forgive, to work through problems like adults. Michael? Vanessa's voice stopped him at the door. I've been alone in that big house for 3 years. You just weren't paying attention. He left without another word. Vanessa listened to his footsteps recede, the elevator ding, the building settling back into midnight silence. Then she put her head in her hands and let herself feel it, all the grief and rage and relief crashing over her in waves. She cried for the marriage that had died long before tonight. She cried for the version of herself who'd believed that love and ambition could coexist without one consuming the other. She cried for 12 years of building a partnership that had turned out to be a performance. But she didn't cry for long. Vanessa Cole hadn't built an empire by wallowing in emotion. She'd built it by processing feelings quickly and moving forward strategically. She wiped her eyes, fixed her makeup using the compact from her purse, and returned to her laptop. There was work to do. By 3 a.m., she'd drafted the board notification, outlined the restructuring plan, and compiled a list of senior partners who would be asked to resign or accept significantly reduced roles. She'd also started documenting Michael's affair for the divorce proceedings, screenshots of credit card statements, hotel receipts, suspicious Uber rides to neighborhoods that contain nothing but residential addresses. Her phone buzzed. "Monica, stop working and get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal." Vanessa smiled and typed back, "Tomorrow's going to be amazing. This is what I built for." She meant it. Despite the pain, despite the public spectacle, despite the chaos that would unfold in the coming days, she felt more alive than she had in years. The secret was out. The performance was over. She could finally be who she actually was. Vanessa Cole, majority owner of Harrison & Cole Financial Services. A woman who'd outplayed everyone while they thought she was just standing in her husband's shadow. Let them see her now. Let them all see her now. The Harrison & Cole boardroom. Monday morning felt like a courtroom. 10 senior partners sat around the mahogany table, their expressions ranging from hostile to terrified. Gerald Morrison looked like he'd aged a decade over the weekend. Thomas Park kept checking his phone as if the right legal precedent might miraculously appear. Jennifer Wu, the only other woman among the senior partners, watched Vanessa with something that might have been respect or calculation. It was hard to tell. Vanessa stood at the head of the table in a power suit the color of blood, her natural hair pulled back in a sleek bun, her expression calm and absolute. "Good morning," she said. "I'm sure you've all had an interesting weekend." "This is unethical," Gerald spluttered. "Owning a company in secret, letting your husband run it under false pretenses." "Nothing about my ownership is unethical or illegal. My attorneys will be happy to walk you through the documentation." Vanessa placed a folder on the table. "Shell corporations are perfectly legal. Strategic investment is perfectly legal. Choosing not to publicize my ownership was my prerogative as majority shareholder." "But Michael is no longer relevant to this conversation." Vanessa's voice could have frozen water. "As of this morning, he's been removed from his position as CEO. He'll receive a severance package as outlined in his contract. His employment with Harrison & Cole is terminated. You can't just..." "I can. I own 51% of this company. I can do whatever I want within the bounds of law and corporate bylaws. And I want Michael gone." Jennifer Wu spoke for the first time. "Who's replacing him as CEO?" Vanessa smiled. "Me." The reaction was immediate. Protests, objections, demands for votes and procedures, and all the bureaucratic nonsense designed to protect the status quo. "Gentlemen, and Jennifer, let me be clear." Vanessa's voice cut through the noise. "This isn't a democracy. This isn't a negotiation. I'm informing you of changes that are already in effect. You can either adapt and continue to profit from your partnership stakes, or you can resign and take your severance packages. Those are your options." "This is insane," Thomas Park said. "You have no experience running a firm of this size. You've never been in leadership. I've been making the leadership decisions for 3 years. You just didn't know it." Vanessa pulled out her laptop and turned it to face the room. "Remember the Mercado acquisition? My strategy. The restructuring of our Asian markets? My plan? The shift to sustainable investment portfolios that attracted $300 million in new assets? All me. Michael was a figurehead. I was the brain." She let that sink in, watching comprehension dawn on faces that had underestimated her for years. "The difference is, I'm done hiding. I'm done letting mediocre men take credit for my work. So here's what's going to happen. Harrison & Cole is getting a complete overhaul. New leadership structure. New strategic direction. New culture." "What does that mean for us?" Jennifer asked. "For you? Promotion. You're now Chief Operating Officer. You've been underutilized and underpaid for years because these men," she gestured at the others, "couldn't handle a woman in real power. That ends today." Jennifer's expression shifted to something like vindication. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Earn it." Vanessa turned to the men. As for the rest of you, here's the deal. Gerald, you're retiring. Effective immediately. Your partnership will be bought out at fair market value, and you'll sign an NDA about the transition. You can't force me out. I can. Check your partnership agreement. There's a clause allowing majority shareholders to buy out partners over 65 during restructuring. You're 63, but I'm willing to bet you lied about your age on your original employment application. My investigators found your real birth certificate. You're 67. You've been collecting higher pension contributions under false pretenses for years. Gerald went pale. Sign the buyout agreement, Vanessa continued, and we'll all forget about the pension fraud. Refuse, and I'll pursue legal action. Your choice. Thomas, you're being demoted to senior advisor. Half your current salary, no management responsibilities. You've been coasting on old relationships for 5 years while making terrible investment calls. That's over. She went through the entire room, one by one, reshaping the leadership structure with surgical precision. Some would stay in reduced roles. Some would be bought out. Some would be given new opportunities to actually prove themselves without the dead weight of legacy partners dragging down the firm. By the time she finished, the room looked like a bomb had hit it. Any questions? Vanessa asked. What's the new strategic direction? Jennifer asked. You mentioned culture change. Harrison & Cole is going to be the most progressive, innovative, and diverse financial firm in Chicago. We're going to actively recruit women and people of color. We're going to lead in sustainable investing. We're going to create mentorship programs and pathways to partnership that don't require 30 years of kissing ass. Vanessa closed her laptop. We're going to be the firm I wish had existed when I was starting out. That's going to alienate our traditional client base, Thomas warned. Our traditional client base is dying, literally. The average age of our clients is 62. We need to attract the next generation of wealth, and that generation cares about diversity, sustainability, and social impact. We adapt or we die. I prefer adapting. The meeting continued for another hour, hammering out details, addressing concerns, establishing timelines. By the end, Vanessa had secured agreement, willing or otherwise, from everyone in the room. As people filed out, Jennifer hung back. That was the most impressive display of power I've ever witnessed, she said quietly. Just wait. I'm just getting started. Can I ask you something, off the record? Sure. Why now? You could have done this any time in the past 3 years. Why reveal your ownership at the gala, in front of everyone, in that specific way? Vanessa considered the question. She could give the strategic answer, that the timing was right, that the firm needed shaking up, that Michael's affair provided perfect cover for the transition. But Jennifer deserved honesty. Because I saw my husband holding hands with his assistant, and I realized I'd been making myself smaller to protect his ego, playing supportive wife while I actually ran the show. And I was furious. At him, at myself, at every system that made me think I needed to hide my success. Vanessa met Jennifer's eyes. So I burned it all down. The marriage, the charade, the performance. Sometimes you have to destroy the old structure before you can build something better. I respect the hell out of that. Jennifer paused at the door. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're finally getting the recognition you deserve. And I'm glad I get to be part of whatever you build next. After Jennifer left, Vanessa stood alone in the boardroom, looking out at the Chicago skyline. The city stretched before her in geometric precision, steel and glass and ambition, all reaching toward the same sky. Her phone buzzed. Monica. How'd it go? Perfectly. Gerald's out. Thomas is demoted. Jennifer's COO. I'm CEO. Total reconstruction. You're terrifying and I love it. Lunch? Can't. Meeting with PR team at noon. Dinner? Deal. My place. 7 p.m. Bring wine and war stories. Vanessa smiled and pocketed her phone. She had 3 more meetings today. PR strategy to manage the media firestorm, legal review of the divorce proceedings, and a one-on-one with the firm's head of HR to discuss implementing new diversity initiatives. But first, she had one personal matter to handle. She took the elevator down to the 32nd floor, where former Michael's, corner office sat empty. His personal items had been packed by security over the weekend per her instructions. Now the space was stripped bare, waiting for its new occupant. Vanessa walked to the desk where she'd confronted him Friday night and opened the top drawer. Inside, as expected, she found what she was looking for. A framed photo of her and Michael on their wedding day, both so young and optimistic, believing they were building something that would last. She studied her 26-year-old face in the photo. Softer then, less certain, still learning how to take up space in a world designed to minimize her. That Vanessa had loved Michael completely, had believed in their partnership, had thought that success could be shared equally. This Vanessa knew better. She placed the photo face down in the drawer and closed it. Some artifacts belonged in the past. Her phone rang. Unknown number, but the area code was Bahamian. "Jordan?" she answered. "I'm watching CNBC, and they're doing a whole segment on you. The Secret Billionaire, how Vanessa Cole built an empire in the shadows. It's fantastic. Billionaire is an exaggeration. I'm worth about $780 million. Give it 6 months at your current trajectory. You'll hit 10 figures. Jordan's laugh was pure delight. The business press is going insane trying to trace all your investments. Apparently, you've been a silent partner in about 40 companies. The tech startup in Austin that just went public. That was you. Minority stake, 20%. The green energy fund that's outperforming everyone. Also you. 40% of that one. Vanessa Cole, you beautiful, secretive shark. How did you keep all of this quiet? Shell corporations, trusted attorneys, and the fact that everyone assumed my wealth came from Michael, not the other way around. Sexism and racism work in your favor sometimes. People's assumptions make them blind. Well, they're not blind anymore. You're the most talked about woman in finance. Bloomberg wants an interview. Fortune wants you for their cover. Every women's organization is calling you a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just a woman who got tired of playing small. That's what makes you a hero, darling. How many women are out there right now, hiding their light, downplaying their success, making themselves smaller because they're afraid of threatening mediocre men? And you just showed them they don't have to. You claimed your power publicly. Consequences be damned. That's revolutionary. Vanessa felt something warm spread through her chest. She hadn't thought about it in those terms, hadn't considered that her personal rage-fueled decision might resonate beyond her own circumstances. I've been getting messages, she admitted. Hundreds of them. Women I don't know, telling me I inspired them. Sharing their own stories of hiding success or downplaying achievements or staying in bad relationships because leaving felt too hard. What are you going to do with that platform? I don't know. Fix my own company first. Get divorced. Then maybe, I don't know, something bigger. You'll figure it out. You always do. Jordan paused. Have you talked to Michael since Friday? Once. He came to the office that night, tried to make it about my lies instead of his affair. Didn't work. I fired him this morning. Effective immediately. How are you really doing? With the marriage ending? It was the second time someone had asked her that, and Vanessa still didn't have a clean answer. How was she doing? The truth was complicated. I'm relieved, she said finally, which probably says everything about the state of our marriage. I'm not devastated. I'm not even really sad. I'm just free. Like I've been carrying weight I didn't realize was there, and suddenly it's gone. That's good. That's healthy. Is it? Shouldn't I be more upset? We were together 12 years. Quality over quantity, V. You can spend 12 years with someone and still be strangers. Better to recognize that and move on than waste another 12 years pretending. They talked for a few more minutes before Jordan had to go. After hanging up, Vanessa made her way back upstairs to her new office, the CEO's suite on the 40th floor with panoramic views of Lake Michigan and the Chicago skyline. It was larger than Michael's office had been, more impressive, with better light. She'd have it redecorated, strip away the masculine leather and dark wood, replace it with something that reflected her aesthetic. But for now, she just stood at the window and let herself feel the magnitude of what she'd done. She'd walked away from a 12-year marriage. She'd publicly claimed ownership of a major financial firm. She'd restructured leadership and fired her husband in the same morning. She'd become the story everyone was talking about. And she felt alive. Her assistant, newly hired, 40-year-old professional named Claire, who came highly recommended and had zero interest in sleeping with her boss, knocked on the door. "Mrs. Cole, the PR team is here." "It's Ms. Cole now," Vanessa corrected gently. "Or just Vanessa. And thank you, Claire. Give me 2 minutes." She used those 2 minutes to center herself, to push away the personal chaos and focus on the professional strategy. The PR meeting would determine how Harrison and Cole navigated the media storm. They needed to control the narrative, position the ownership reveal as visionary rather than deceptive, frame Vanessa as a pioneer rather than a scorned wife seeking revenge, even though the revenge was absolutely a factor. The PR team was young, diverse, and brilliant, exactly the kind of talent Harrison and Cole needed to attract going forward. They'd prepared a comprehensive strategy: exclusive interview with a respected business journalist, social media campaign highlighting Vanessa's investment success, partnership announcements with women's organizations, and diversity initiatives. "We want to position you as the face of a new kind of leadership," the team lead, a sharp woman named Kara, explained. "Not just a woman who succeeded despite the obstacles, but someone who's actively dismantling those obstacles for the next generation." "I like it," Vanessa said. "But I don't want to be positioned as a victim. Not of Michael, not of sexism, not of anything. I'm not interested in sympathy." "Understood. What about respect, admiration, recognition for playing a long game that paid off spectacularly?" "That works." They spent 2 hours hammering out details, crafting messages, preparing for potential negative press. By the time the meeting ended, Vanessa felt confident they had a strategy that would work. She was reviewing the proposed talking points when her phone rang. Her divorce attorney, Diane Chen. "Vanessa, we need to talk about Michael's response to the divorce filing." "Let me guess. He's being difficult?" "He's claiming the prenup is invalid because you failed to disclose your full assets when you signed it 12 years ago." Vanessa laughed. "I didn't have those assets 12 years ago. I built them during the marriage." "That's what I told his attorney. But they're going to argue that you systematically hid income and investment gains throughout the marriage, which violates the spirit of equitable partnership. The prenup has an infidelity clause that nullifies most of his claims. We have documentation of his affair." "We do, but he's claiming the affair only started after you emotionally abandoned the marriage through your focus on business. He's going to paint himself as the neglected husband who sought comfort elsewhere." "That's ridiculous. It's also potentially effective with the right judge. We need to be prepared for a fight." Diane's voice was calm, professional. "I'm going to need complete financial disclosure from you. Every investment, every account, every asset. And Vanessa, I mean everything. If we're going to win this, I need to know exactly what we're working with. You'll have it by end of day tomorrow." "Good. One more thing. Michael's attorney is pushing for spousal support." "Absolutely not. He's claiming that he sacrificed his career growth to support your business activities, that he took a lower salary position at Harrison and Cole to help build the firm while you made outside investments. He took that position because I arranged it. I owned the company." "I know, and we'll argue that. But Vanessa, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that this gets ugly. Really ugly. Michael knows he's lost everything. His job, his marriage, his reputation. He's going to fight dirty because he has nothing left to lose. Then we fight dirtier. I want every text message between him and Sienna. every hotel receipt, every lie he told me about working late. I want a paper trail that proves he's been systematically unfaithful for months, maybe years. I'll get my investigators on it." After the call ended, Vanessa sat in silence, feeling the weight of the battles ahead. The firm restructuring would be challenging but manageable. She'd been preparing for that for years. But the divorce, the personal unraveling, the public dissection of her marriage, that would be harder. She pulled out her phone and texted Monica. "Can we move dinner up? I need wine and friendship sooner rather than later." The response came immediately. "Come now, I'm working from home. I have emergency wine and cheese for exactly this reason." Vanessa grabbed her coat and told Claire she'd be out for the rest of the afternoon. The drive to Monica's Lincoln Park townhouse took 20 minutes through Monday traffic. When Monica opened the door, she took one look at Vanessa's face and pulled her into a hug. "Come on, wine's already open." They settled in Monica's living room, comfortable and lived in, with mismatched furniture and family photos covering every surface. Monica's wife, Sarah, was a pediatrician who worked long hospital shifts, so it was just the two of them. "Tell me everything," Monica said, pouring generous glasses of Cabernet. Vanessa walked her through the morning, the board meeting, the restructuring, Michael's attempts to fight the prenup, the realization that the divorce would be brutal. "He's going to drag this out," Vanessa said. "Make it as painful as possible because that's all he has left. Let him try. Diane Chen is the best divorce attorney in Chicago. She'll eviscerate him." "I know. But Monica, it's going to be public. Messy. Every detail of our marriage aired in court and in the press. People are already speculating about why we're divorcing, whether my success drove us apart, whether I'm the cold career woman who neglected her husband. Fuck those people." Easy to say, harder to live with. Monica was quiet for a moment, swirling wine in her glass. "Can I tell you something about when Sarah and I got together?" "Of course." "I was terrified to come out. Terrified of how my family would react, how it would affect my career, what people would say. I was a junior partner at the firm, and being a lesbian in corporate law, even in a liberal city like Chicago, felt like handing people ammunition to use against me. I remember. Sarah told me something that changed everything. She said, "You can live your whole life trying to control what other people think of you. Or you can live your truth and let them think whatever they want. Only one of those options leads to happiness." Monica met Vanessa's eyes. "You've spent 12 years managing appearances, controlling narratives, being the perfect wife to protect Michael's ego. And look where it got you. Betrayed and underestimated. So stop trying to control the story. Just live your truth and let the chips fall where they may." Vanessa felt tears prick her eyes. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You've just been too busy conquering the financial world to notice." They laughed, and some of the tension in Vanessa's shoulders released. This was what she needed. Not strategy sessions or legal prep, but just friendship. Just wine and honesty, and someone who knew her before she became the story everyone was talking about. "I'm scared," Vanessa admitted. "Not of the divorce or the business challenges. I can handle all of that. But I'm scared of being alone. I've been with Michael since I was 26. I don't know how to be a single woman at 38. You won't be alone. You have people who love you. And Vanessa, you've always been alone in the marriage. Michael checked out emotionally years ago. Now you just get to stop pretending otherwise." Jordan said something similar. "Because it's true. And honestly, I think you're going to thrive. You're going to build something incredible with Harrison and Cole. You're going to meet someone who actually deserves you. You're going to live the life you've been too busy building for other people to actually enjoy for yourself." "You sound very certain." "I am certain. Because I know you. You don't know how to fail, V. You only know how to win. This is just a different kind of battle." They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, laughing, processing. By the time Vanessa left Monica's house at 6 p.m., She felt fortified, ready to face whatever came next. The drive back to her house in Kenwood felt different. The mansion she'd shared with Michael for 8 years, 5 bedrooms, pristine landscaping, the kind of house that appeared in design magazines, suddenly felt like a mausoleum. A beautiful prison she'd decorated herself. She pulled into the circular driveway and sat in the car for a moment, gathering courage to walk into the empty house. Michael had moved out over the weekend, taking his clothes and personal items but leaving everything else. The division of property would come later, during the divorce proceedings. Inside, the silence was oppressive. Vanessa walked through rooms that had hosted dinner parties and holiday celebrations, spaces where she'd performed the role of successful wife and gracious hostess. All of it felt hollow now, like a stage set waiting to be struck. She poured herself a glass of wine. More wine. She was going to have a headache tomorrow. And walked out to the back patio. November cold bit at her skin, but she didn't care. The yard stretched before her, professionally landscaped, magazine perfect, soulless. This house wasn't her. It never had been. It was what she'd thought she was supposed to want. The mansion in the right neighborhood, the trophy property that signaled success. But it had never felt like home. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she'd call a realtor and put it on the market. She'd find something smaller, more authentic. Maybe a loft in the West Loop, or a vintage brownstone in Pilsen. Something that reflected who she actually was instead of who she'd been performing as. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I hope you're happy. You destroyed my career and my life because you couldn't handle that I found someone who actually appreciates me. Vanessa stared at the message for a long moment. She could respond, could point out all the ways he was wrong, all the ways he'd destroyed his own career and life through his choices, could engage with his victim narrative and his blame shifting. Instead, she blocked the number and deleted the message. Michael didn't get any more of her time or energy. He'd had 12 years. That was enough. She scrolled through her contacts and found a name she hadn't called in years. Angela Morrison, a real estate agent who specialized in luxury properties. They'd met at a charity event and kept in touch sporadically. Angela, it's Vanessa Cole. I'm looking to sell my house in Kenwood and find something new. Interested? The response came within minutes. Absolutely. I've been following your story. You're incredible. When can we meet? Tomorrow afternoon? 2 p.m.? Perfect. See you then. Vanessa felt something shift inside her, from grief to anticipation, from ending to beginning. The divorce would be hard. The business restructuring would be challenging. The public scrutiny would be exhausting. But on the other side of all that pain was freedom. The freedom to build a life on her own terms, without compromise or performance. The freedom to be exactly who she was, brilliant, ambitious, powerful, without apologizing or downplaying or hiding. She raised her wine glass to the empty yard, to the house she was leaving behind, to the version of herself who'd thought that success and love required sacrifice. Here's to burning it all down, she said aloud, and building something better from the ashes. The November wind carried her words away into the Chicago night, where they dissolved into the city's endless noise. Just another woman's declaration of independence, lost among millions of other stories. But this one was hers, and she was just getting started. 6 months later, Vanessa stood on the rooftop deck of her new loft in the West Loop, watching the sun set over Chicago's skyline. May had transformed the city, trees budding, people emerging from winter hibernation, the whole urban landscape vibrating with renewed energy. Her loft was everything the Kenwood mansion hadn't been: authentic, comfortable, hers. Exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, an open concept that flowed naturally instead of being divided into formal rooms designed for entertaining people she didn't particularly like. She'd furnished it herself, choosing pieces because she loved them, not because they matched some designer's vision of what a successful woman's home should look like. This was home. Finally, actually home. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks ago. As Diane had predicted, Michael fought dirty, claiming emotional abandonment, demanding spousal support, trying to paint Vanessa as a cold career woman who'd valued money over marriage. But the evidence of his affair, combined with the prenup's infidelity clause, had eviscerated his arguments. He'd walked away with a settlement that was generous by most standards, but a fraction of what he'd hoped for. Vanessa had kept the majority of her investments, her company ownership, and most importantly, her reputation. The court had seen through his victim narrative, recognized him for what he was, a man who'd cheated on his wife and then tried to profit from it. The business press had been less kind to him. Michael had struggled to find work after Harrison and Cole. Firms didn't want the baggage of hiring someone so publicly disgraced. Last Vanessa heard, he'd taken a position at a mid-tier firm in Houston, far from Chicago's spotlight. She didn't keep track anymore. He was history, a chapter closed. Harrison and Cole, meanwhile, was thriving. The restructuring had been painful but necessary. Several senior partners had resigned rather than adapt to the new culture. Others had surprised her by leaning in, embracing the changes, proving they could evolve. Jennifer Wu had exceeded every expectation as COO. Together, she and Vanessa had implemented diversity initiatives that had attracted top talent from across the country. Their sustainable investment portfolios were outperforming traditional approaches. Client satisfaction was at an all-time high. And for the first time in the firm's 73-year history, the leadership team looked like the diverse, dynamic city they served. Vanessa's phone buzzed. A text from Monica. "Turn on Channel 7. You're on the news again." She went inside and flipped on the TV. Sure enough, a segment about Chicago's most influential business leaders featured her prominently. The anchor was discussing her transformation of Harrison and Cole, her advocacy for women in finance, her upcoming keynote address at a national conference on business ethics. "Vanessa Cole has become a symbol of a new kind of leadership," the anchor said. 6 months ago, she shocked the business world by revealing her hidden ownership of Harrison and Cole Financial Services. Today, she's reshaping the firm and the industry in her image. The segment showed clips from her Bloomberg interview, where she'd spoken candidly about hiding her success, about the cost of making herself small, about deciding to claim her power publicly. "I spent years being strategic about staying invisible," she told the interviewer. "But invisibility has a price. It costs you your voice, your recognition, your ability to inspire others. I'm done paying that price." The interview had gone viral. The video had millions of views. Women across industries had reached out, sharing their own stories of hidden success, of downplayed achievements, of making themselves smaller to protect men's egos. Vanessa had become, somewhat reluctantly, a symbol. A figurehead for women who were tired of hiding, tired of apologizing, tired of letting mediocre men take credit for their work. She turned off the TV and returned to the rooftop deck. Her dinner date would arrive in 30 minutes, and she wanted a few moments of quiet before then. Dating again at 38 had been strange at first. After 12 years with Michael, she'd forgotten how to navigate the vulnerability of new connection, the uncertainty of not knowing someone's rhythms and patterns. But she'd also discovered things about herself she'd forgotten, that she liked spontaneity, that she enjoyed intellectual challenge, that she could be playful and adventurous instead of always controlled and strategic. His name was David Richardson. 41, divorced, a history professor at Northwestern with a specialty in social movements and political activism. They'd met at a charity gala 3 months ago, been seated next to each other by chance, and spent the entire dinner talking about everything from economic inequality to the best pizza in Chicago. He'd asked for her number. She'd given it. They'd gone on a first date that turned into a 4-hour conversation, then a second date, a third, a 10th. Now they saw each other several times a week, building something that felt organic and real instead of performed and strategic. David didn't care about her money, didn't need her to be anything other than who she actually was. Challenged her intellectually, made her laugh, gave her space when she needed it, and presence when she didn't. It was revolutionary, being with someone who saw her clearly and liked what he saw. The door buzzer rang. Vanessa smiled and went to let him in. David emerged from the elevator carrying a bottle of wine and wearing jeans and a button-down shirt that somehow made him look both casual and put together. He kissed her hello. Easy, comfortable. The kiss of people who'd moved past awkward uncertainty into genuine affection. "How was your day?" he asked, following her to the kitchen. "Productive. Board meeting this morning. Lunch with a prospective client. PR strategy session this afternoon." "You?" "Graded 37 essays on the civil rights movement. My faith in the next generation is cautiously optimistic." She laughed and poured wine while David unpacked ingredients for dinner. He'd insisted on cooking tonight, something about wanting to impress her with his culinary skills. Vanessa had learned to let him do thoughtful things without analyzing whether she deserved them or should reciprocate immediately. It was still a work in progress. They worked together in the kitchen, chopping vegetables and talking about their days. It felt normal, domestic, like something she'd never actually had with Michael. He'd been too focused on appearances, on whether their relationship looked successful, rather than whether it felt good. "I saw your segment on Channel 7, David said, stirring sauce. "Very impressive, though I suspect you're tired of being impressive. Sometimes, it's exhausting being a symbol. Everyone wants me to represent something. Women in business, successful divorcees, people who overcame obstacles. I just want to run my company and live my life." "Fair. But you have to admit, you did kind of invite the symbol making by dramatically revealing your ownership at a gala in front of 300 people. Point taken. Besides, representation matters. How many women saw your story and realized they didn't have to hide their success? How many young black girls saw you and thought, I can do that too?" Vanessa considered this. She'd received hundreds of messages from women and girls sharing exactly that sentiment. It had been overwhelming and humbling and sometimes too much to process. "I guess if I'm going to be a symbol," she said slowly, "I want to be one that shows the messy reality. Not just the triumph, but the cost. The divorce, the public humiliation, the years of hiding, the struggle to figure out who you are when you stop performing. That's the symbol we need, the real one." They ate dinner on the rooftop deck, watching the city lights come alive as darkness fell. David told her about the book he was writing, an analysis of women's labor movements in the 20th century. Vanessa told him about her plans to expand Harrison and Cole's mentorship programs, about the scholarship fund she was establishing for women studying finance. "You're building a legacy," David observed. "I'm trying to fix systems that are broken. If that becomes a legacy, great. But I'm more interested in concrete change than abstract recognition." "That's very you." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You're fundamentally practical. Even your idealism is grounded in pragmatic execution. It's one of the things I love about you." The word hung in the air between them. Love. They hadn't said it yet, had been circling around it for weeks, both cautious about moving too fast. "Is that a declaration?" Vanessa asked carefully. "It's a fact. I love you, Vanessa. Your brilliance, your strategic mind, your refusal to apologize for success, the way you're rebuilding yourself after everything fell apart." David set down his wineglass. "I love that you're a work in progress who's not afraid to admit she doesn't have all the answers. I love that you're powerful and vulnerable at the same time. I just love you." Vanessa felt tears prick her eyes. With Michael, "I love you" had become rote, something said out of habit rather than feeling. But this felt different. Real. Earned through months of showing up authentically instead of performing a role. "I love you too," she said. Which terrifies me, by the way. Loving someone. Being vulnerable again. I know. We can go slow. We can take our time. I'm not going anywhere. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands intertwined, watching Chicago breathe below them. Vanessa thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago. standing at a gala, seeing her husband holding another woman's hand, making the split-second decision to burn down everything she'd built to reclaim her power. That decision had cost her. The divorce had been brutal. The public scrutiny had been invasive. The process of restructuring her life, personal and professional, had been exhausting. But it had also freed her, given her space to discover who she actually was instead of who she'd been performing as, allowed her to build authentic relationships instead of strategic partnerships, let her claim her success publicly instead of hiding it to protect someone else's ego. "I have a confession," David said, breaking the silence. "Should I be worried?" "Probably. I Googled you before our first date. Read every article about the gala, the ownership reveal, the divorce. I wanted to know what I was getting into. And I was intimidated as hell. You're Vanessa Cole, billionaire businesswoman, destroyer of incompetent husbands, reshaper of industries. What would someone like that want with a history professor who makes $85,000 a year? First, I'm not a billionaire. Yet. Second, I want someone who sees me as a person instead of a portfolio. Someone who challenges me intellectually instead of feeling threatened by my success. Someone who makes me laugh and doesn't care that I own a company." She squeezed his hand. "I want you." "Good. Because you're stuck with me now." They cleaned up dinner together, then moved inside to the couch. David pulled her close, and they sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who don't need to fill every moment with noise. Vanessa's phone buzzed with an email notification. She glanced at it and smiled. "What?" David asked. "Jordan, my mentor, just sent me the details for a women's investment summit she's organizing in the Bahamas. She wants me to be a keynote speaker. Are you going to do it?" "Probably. It's a chance to talk about strategic investing, building wealth, owning your success. All the things I learned by trial and error that I can pass on to the next generation. See? Legacy building." "Practical impact," Vanessa corrected, but she was smiling. Her phone buzzed again. This time a text from Jennifer. "Just closed the Peterson account. $200 million in new assets. Drinks tomorrow to celebrate?" Vanessa typed back, "Absolutely. Congratulations." "Work?" David asked. "Jennifer landing another major client. Harrison & Cole is officially having its best year ever. Because you rebuilt it from the ground up. Because we rebuilt it. Jennifer's been instrumental. So has the new team we brought in. It's collaborative success, not just mine." "You really struggle with taking credit, don't you?" "Old habits. I spent 12 years minimizing my contributions so Michael could feel important, still learning to actually claim my wins." "Well, claim this one. You transformed that firm. You created a culture where brilliant people like Jennifer can thrive. That's your achievement." Vanessa let herself sit with that. Let herself feel pride without immediately minimizing it or sharing credit. It was uncomfortable but necessary, learning to acknowledge her own power, her own impact, her own worth. They stayed up late talking, laughing, being together in ways that felt effortless. Around midnight, David reluctantly said he should go. He had an early class tomorrow. "Or," Vanessa said carefully, "you could stay." "Is that an invitation?" "It's a fact. You could stay, if you wanted to." David studied her face. They'd been taking things slow physically, both aware of the baggage they carried from previous relationships. But slow didn't mean stopped. "I'd like that," he said. Later, wrapped in sheets that smelled like lavender and contentment, Vanessa lay awake thinking about the journey that had brought her here. 6 months ago, she'd been standing at a gala watching her marriage implode. Now she was building something new, a life that belonged entirely to her. Relationships based on authenticity instead of performance. Success she could claim openly instead of hiding. "You okay?" David murmured, half asleep. "Yeah, just thinking." About how sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is also the best thing. The gala, seeing Michael with Sienna. It destroyed my marriage, but it freed me. Gave me permission to stop hiding, stop apologizing, stop being smaller than I actually am. The phoenix rises, David said. What? The phoenix, mythological bird that burns up and is reborn from its own ashes. That's you. You burned down your old life and rose from the ashes stronger. Vanessa smiled in the darkness. I like that metaphor. I like you. I love you, she corrected. Even better. She fell asleep feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling like herself in ways she'd forgotten were possible. The conference center in Miami was packed with over 2,000 women. Entrepreneurs, executives, investors, all gathered for the Women in Finance Summit. Vanessa stood backstage, listening to her introduction, feeling the familiar flutter of nerves before a major speech. Our keynote speaker today needs no introduction, the MC said. Vanessa Cole transformed Harrison & Cole Financial Services from a struggling firm into an industry leader. She's advocated for diversity and sustainability in finance. She's mentored hundreds of women entering the field. And she's done it all while refusing to apologize for her success. Please welcome Vanessa Cole. The applause was thunderous. Vanessa walked onto the stage, taking in the sea of faces. Mostly women, mostly people of color, all of them looking at her with expressions ranging from admiration to hope to determination. This was why she'd said yes to public speaking despite hating it. These women needed to see someone who looked like them, who'd faced the same obstacles, who'd found a way through. Good morning, she began. A year and a half ago, I stood at a company gala and made a decision that changed my life. I saw my husband holding hands with his assistant, and instead of quietly confronting him, instead of handling it privately, I walked on stage and told 300 people that I owned the company. Laughter rippled through the audience. It was impulsive. It was dramatic. It was probably not the strategic move a rational businesswoman should have made. But you know what? It was the most liberating thing I've ever done. She talked for 45 minutes about her journey, hiding her success, making herself small, the cost of invisibility. She talked about the divorce, the restructuring, the painful process of rebuilding. She talked about learning to claim power publicly, to take credit for her work, to build authentic relationships instead of strategic partnerships. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that success is easy, she said, or that there's a perfect formula for balancing ambition and relationships, or that you can have it all without sacrifice, because that's bullshit. More laughter. What I will tell you is this. Hiding your brilliance to protect someone else's ego is the worst kind of sacrifice. Downplaying your success so others feel comfortable is self-betrayal. Making yourself small so mediocre people feel big is a waste of your potential. The audience was riveted now, hanging on every word. So here's my advice. Be visible. Be vocal. Be unapologetic about your success. Take credit for your work. Demand the recognition you've earned. And if people can't handle your excellence, romantic partners, colleagues, family members, that's their problem, not yours. She paused, making eye contact with women across the audience. You don't need permission to be powerful. You don't need validation to claim your success. You just need the courage to stop performing and start living authentically. And trust me, that courage is worth every uncomfortable conversation, every relationship that doesn't survive, every moment of doubt. Because on the other side of that courage is freedom. The freedom to build a life on your own terms. The freedom to be exactly who you are without apology or compromise. The freedom to succeed loudly instead of hiding in the shadows. The applause started before she'd finished, building to a standing ovation that made her eyes sting with unexpected emotion. She'd given dozens of speeches in the past year, but this moment, 2,000 women on their feet, celebrating not just her success but the permission to claim their own. This felt different. After the speech, the networking session was chaos. Women lined up to talk to her, to share their stories, to ask advice. Vanessa listened to entrepreneurs who'd been hiding their revenue numbers from partners who felt threatened. Executives who'd let male colleagues take credit for their ideas. Investors who'd downplayed their portfolios to avoid seeming too ambitious. "Thank you," a young black woman said, tears in her eyes. "I'm 25, and I just sold my tech startup for $8 million. But I've been telling people it was less because my boyfriend gets weird when I talk about money. Hearing you speak, I'm done with that. If he can't handle my success, he can leave." "Good for you," Vanessa said, meaning it. "You built something incredible. Own it." She spent 2 hours talking to attendees before finally escaping to the speaker's lounge, exhausted but energized. Monica was waiting there, having flown down for the conference. "You were amazing," Monica said, handing her a bottle of water. "Half those women are probably breaking up with their mediocre boyfriends right now thanks to you. That's the goal. Raise the bar for what we accept. Speaking of relationships, where's David?" "Teaching. He couldn't get away this weekend. But he's flying in tomorrow morning. We're taking a few days in Key West after the conference. Things are good with you two?" "Really good. He proposed last month." Monica nearly dropped her wine. "What? And you didn't tell me?" "I'm telling you now." "Well, what did you say?" "I said yes. Eventually. After a long conversation about prenups and independence, and making sure we both understood that marriage doesn't mean I become smaller or he becomes my project." Very romantic. "It was, actually, because it was real. No performance, no pretending, just two people who see each other clearly and choose to build something together." Vanessa smiled. "We're getting married in October. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. Nothing like the spectacle with Michael." "I'm happy for you, V. You deserve this. All of it." They were interrupted by Jordan, who'd been moderating another panel. She swept in looking fabulous in all white, barely aged despite being in her late 50s. "Vanessa Cole, you just inspired a revolution in there. I had women coming up to me after, talking about demanding raises and equity and recognition. You're dangerous." "Good. We need more dangerous women." "Amen to that." Jordan settled into a chair. "I heard a rumor you're expanding Harrison and Cole to the West Coast?" "Considering it. Jennifer's been scouting locations in San Francisco and LA. We want to establish a presence there, recruit from the tech sector. Always building, always growing. That's what I love about you." They talked for another hour about business, relationships, the state of the industry. By the time the conference wrapped up for the day, Vanessa was exhausted in the best way, the kind of tired that came from meaningful work, from connection, from using her platform to actually make a difference. She returned to her hotel room and FaceTimed David, who answered from his office at Northwestern. "How'd it go?" he asked. Standing ovation, women crying, multiple declarations that they're done settling for less than they deserve. The usual. "So you changed lives. Just another Tuesday for Vanessa Cole." "How was class?" Enlightening discussion about intersectionality and labor movements. "Though I spent half the time thinking about you." "Liar." "True story. One of my students asked if I knew you. Apparently your Miami speech is already trending on Twitter. I had to admit I'm engaged to you, which made me the coolest professor on campus for approximately 5 minutes." Vanessa laughed. This was what she loved about David. He wasn't threatened by her success, wasn't trying to compete or diminish it. He was genuinely proud, genuinely supportive, genuinely himself. "I miss you," she said. "Miss you too. But you'll be home in 3 days, and then you're mine for a week before the next conference." "About that." "Vanessa, no. You promised me a week. No work, no speeches, no board meetings. Just us, exploring Key West, being normal people who aren't reshaping industries." "You're right, I promised. 1 week, completely offline." "Good. Now tell me about the speech. I want details." They talked until Vanessa's eyes started closing, the exhaustion of the day finally catching up with her. After hanging up, she lay in the hotel bed, scrolling through social media. The conference hashtag was trending. Videos of her speech were being shared thousands of times. Women were posting their own stories of claiming power, demanding recognition, refusing to hide their success. One post caught her eye. "Today, Vanessa Cole told me I don't need permission to be powerful, so I just asked for the promotion I've been afraid to request for 2 years. Interview is Monday. Thank you for showing me what's possible." Vanessa screenshotted it, added it to a folder on her phone where she kept messages like this. On hard days, when the work felt overwhelming or the scrutiny felt invasive, she'd look through these reminders of why visibility mattered, why representation mattered, why her story mattered. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on all your success. I'm happy for you. And Michael." She'd blocked his old number, but apparently he'd found a new way to reach her. Vanessa stared at the message for a long moment. A year ago, she would have felt anger, bitterness, the urge to respond with something cutting and final. But now she just felt nothing. Michael was a chapter in her past, a story she'd learned from and moved beyond. She deleted the message without responding and blocked the new number. Some doors didn't need to be reopened, even for closure. The sun was setting over Key West, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed impossible, like nature was showing off. Vanessa and David sat on the deck of their rented cottage, drinking mojitos and watching sailboats drift across the water. "This was a good idea," Vanessa admitted. "The offline week. I have them occasionally. Good ideas. Very occasionally." David laughed and pulled her closer. They'd spent the week exploring the island, eating fresh seafood, reading books that had nothing to do with business or economics. Vanessa had turned off her phone after the first day, trusting Jennifer and her team to handle anything urgent. It had been terrifying at first, disconnecting. But gradually, the anxiety had faded, replaced by something she rarely allowed herself. Peace. "Can I ask you something?" David said as the sun touched the horizon. "Always. Do you ever regret it? The gala. The public reveal. All of it." Vanessa considered the question. Did she regret it? The divorce had been brutal. The restructuring had been exhausting. The public scrutiny had been invasive. She'd lost relationships, Michael obviously, but also friends who'd sided with him, family members who thought she'd been too harsh, professional contacts who preferred her quiet and unassuming. But she'd gained so much more. Freedom to be herself. A company she could lead openly. Relationships built on authenticity. The respect of women who saw her story and felt permission to claim their own power. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret it. I regret waiting so long. I regret all those years of hiding, of making myself small, of letting Michael take credit for my work. But the actual decision to go public, to claim what was mine, that I'd do again in a heartbeat. Even though it cost you? Hiding cost me more. It cost me myself." They sat in silence as the sun completed its descent, the sky deepening from pink to purple to the first stars of evening. "I'm proud of you," David said quietly, "for what you've built, for who you've become, for having the courage to burn down a life that looked perfect to build one that actually is. It's not perfect. I work too much. I'm still learning how to not control everything. I have trust issues from the divorce. I'm a work in progress. Perfect is boring. I prefer real." Vanessa turned to look at him, this man who saw all her sharp edges and complicated layers and chose her anyway. "I love you. I love you too. And I can't wait to marry you in October, in front of everyone, and tell the whole world that Vanessa Cole chose me. You make it sound like I'm the prize. You are, but so am I. We're both prizes. That's why it works. She kissed him as the first stars appeared, feeling grateful and whole and entirely herself. This was what partnership was supposed to feel like. Two people who saw each other clearly, who celebrated each other's success instead of competing with it, who built something together without either one becoming smaller. Her phone, still turned off in the cottage, wouldn't buzz with work emergencies or interview requests or messages from strangers sharing their stories. For 1 week, she was just Vanessa, not the CEO, not the symbol, not the woman who'd shocked the business world. Just Vanessa, in love and at peace, and finally, free. The Harrison & Cole headquarters had moved to a new building in the Loop. 45 stories of glass and steel, triple the size of their old space. The lobby featured a massive art installation by a Black woman artist from the South Side, and the walls held photos of the firm's diverse leadership team. Vanessa stood in the main conference room on the 45th floor, looking out at Chicago spread beneath her. The city where she'd hidden her success, revealed her power, rebuilt her life. The city where she'd learned who she was when she stopped performing. Mrs. Richardson? Her assistant, she'd kept Claire, who'd proven invaluable, poked her head in. The photographer's here for the Forbes shoot. I'll be right there. And Claire? It's Ms. Cole professionally, remember? I kept my name. Right, sorry, Ms. Cole. Vanessa smiled. She'd married David 14 months ago, in a small ceremony in the Bahamas, Jordan's gift to them, hosting on her property with turquoise water and white sand, and only 30 guests. She'd worn a dress she loved instead of something appropriate. She'd written vows that were honest instead of romantic. She'd married David as herself, fully and authentically, without performing a role. She'd kept her last name professionally. Cole was her brand, her identity, the name associated with her success. Personally, she was Vanessa Richardson, David's wife. But in business, she remained Vanessa Cole, the woman who'd transformed Harrison & Cole into one of the most successful and progressive financial firms in the country. The Forbes photographer set up in her office, which was decorated with personal touches, photos of her and David, art from local galleries, books she actually read instead of books that looked impressive on shelves. We're doing a whole feature on transformative business leaders, the photographer explained. Your story, hiding your ownership, revealing it publicly, rebuilding the firm, it's exactly the kind of narrative we want to highlight. They shot for an hour, trying different angles and lighting. Vanessa had learned to be comfortable in front of cameras, to project confidence without arrogance, to be approachable without diminishing her authority. Can we get some shots in the main office? The photographer asked. With your team? They moved to the open-plan workspace where Harrison & Cole's employees worked. The energy was different from the old days. Younger, more diverse, more collaborative. Jennifer appeared with several other executives, and they posed for group shots that would accompany the article. How does it feel? The Forbes journalist asked during the interview portion. Being public about your success after years of hiding it? Liberating, Vanessa said, and exhausting, but mostly liberating. I spent so long making strategic decisions about invisibility, when to speak up, when to stay quiet, whose ego to protect. Now I just get to be excellent publicly. It's simpler. You've become a symbol for women in business. How does that responsibility feel? Heavy sometimes. I didn't set out to be a symbol. I just got tired of hiding and made an impulsive decision at a gala. But if my visibility helps other women feel permission to claim their success, to demand recognition, to stop apologizing for their excellence, then it's worth the wait. What would you tell your younger self, the woman who was hiding her ownership? Vanessa considered this. I'd tell her that strategic invisibility has diminishing returns, that you can't build real power in the shadows, that the cost of hiding, to your sense of self, to your relationships, to your ability to inspire others, is higher than the cost of being seen. I'd tell her to be brave sooner. The interview wrapped up, and Vanessa returned to her office. She had a board meeting in an hour, then dinner with David and his parents. then a late call with Jordan about a potential joint venture. Her life was full, complex, demanding, but it was authentically hers. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a Los Angeles area code. "I saw your Forbes article. You look happy. I'm genuinely glad. I'm sorry for everything." Sienna Vanessa stared at the message, surprised. She hadn't thought about Sienna Martinez in over a year. The last she'd heard, Sienna was working in LA, had gone back to school, was building a life away from the wreckage of her choices. She didn't respond, but she didn't delete it either. Just acknowledged it and moved on. Some apologies didn't require acceptance or forgiveness. Sometimes it was enough to know that people recognized their mistakes and were trying to do better. That evening, at dinner with David's family, his mother asked about the Forbes article. "Are you nervous?" she asked. "About being so public?" "Not anymore," Vanessa said. "I was at first. But I realized that visibility is power. The more public I am about my success, the harder it is for anyone to minimize it or take credit for it. And the more I normalize women being powerful without apology, the easier it becomes for the next generation." "You're very brave," David's father said. "Not everyone would have the courage to expose their husband's affair publicly, to take over a company, to rebuild everything. I didn't feel brave at the time. I felt furious and hurt and desperate to reclaim some control. But maybe that's what bravery actually is. Not the absence of fear, but action despite it." David squeezed her hand under the table, and Vanessa felt a wave of gratitude for this life she'd built from the ashes of the old one. For the partnership that celebrated her instead of competing with her. For the work that challenged and fulfilled her. For the platform that let her make a difference. Later, in bed beside David in the Kenwood house they'd bought together, smaller than her old mansion, warmer, actually a home, Vanessa scrolled through social media. The Forbes article had posted online. Comments were flooding in. "This woman is my hero. She didn't just succeed, she demanded recognition for her success. I've been hiding my business income from my husband because he gets insecure. Reading this, I realize how toxic that is. Time for an honest conversation." Vanessa Cole shows us that you can be successful and happy. You don't have to choose. As a young Black woman in finance, seeing her succeed gives me hope. If she can do it, maybe I can too. Vanessa screenshotted that last one and added it to her collection of reminders. Then she turned off her phone and settled into David's arms. "You're changing the world," he murmured, half asleep. "I'm just living my life loudly instead of quietly. If that changes anything, it's because too many women have been forced to be quiet for too long. My brilliant, powerful, revolutionary wife. Your wife who's exhausted and ready to sleep. That too." She closed her eyes, feeling the steady rhythm of David's breathing, the warmth of their shared bed, the peace of a life built on truth instead of performance. 2 years ago, she'd stood at a company gala and watched her marriage implode. She'd made an impulsive decision to claim her power publicly, consequences be damned. That decision had cost her. The marriage, the carefully curated image, the comfort of invisibility. But it had given her so much more. Herself. And as Vanessa drifted off to sleep, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd make the same choice again. Every time. Forever. Because power claimed openly was worth more than power hidden in shadows. Because authenticity was worth more than approval. Because she was worth more than the small spaces people had tried to confine her to. Vanessa Cole, billionaire, CEO, wife, mentor, symbol woman, had finally learned the most important lesson of all. She didn't need permission to be powerful. She just needed to stop asking for it.